Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here one more time. This time, trying to speak in English. Well, I've been sick, you know. I was sleeping to get better, to be here with you this evening, and I got it. Tonight, we're going to talk about the evidence of the survival of the soul. In 31st of March 31st of 1848, the spirit start communicating with the people here in the United States with the Fox sisters. To start this speech, we're going to show you a little bit about their story. You can just play that first movie. He's not paying attention. You can just play the first movie.
The Fox sisters were three sisters from New York: Leah, Margaret, also called Maggie, and Kate, also called Catherine. The two younger sisters used rappings to convince their much older sister and others that they were communicating with spirits. Their older sister then took charge of them and managed their careers for some time. They all enjoyed success as mediums for many years. On the night of March 31st, 1848, April Fool's Eve, 14-year-old Maggie Fox and her 11-year-old sister Kate reported a recurring mysterious phenomenon in their bedroom. Every night, as the two went to sleep in their clapboard farmhouse, they would hear a strange knocking sound coming from the walls. Even stranger, the knocking seemed to respond to their questions. "If you are an injured spirit, manifested by 3 raps," demanded the girl's mother. "Knock, knock, knock," came the reply. The veil dividing the spirit world and the living had been breached. News of the Fox sisters' wall-rapping spirit spread like wildfire through the spiritually flammable counties of upstate New York, also the birthplace of Mormonism and Millerism, later Seventh-day Adventism. Spiritualism promised a new kind of religious experience, in which believers could receive specific guidance about their lives from those with secret knowledge from the great beyond. On November 14, 1849, the Fox sisters demonstrated their spiritualist rapping at the Corinthian Hall in Rochester. This was the first demonstration of spiritualism held before a paying public, and inaugurated a long history of public events featured by spiritualist mediums and leaders in the United States and in other countries. Eventually, the Fox sisters brought their hugely popular seances to New York City, drawing huge crowds. Their routine evolved from simple knocking and rapping to conversations with deceased relatives and secret messages magically appearing on blank cards. The Fox girls became even more famous, and their public seances in New York in 1850 attracted notable people including William Cullen Bryant, George Bancroft, James Fenimore Cooper, Nathaniel Parker Willis, Horace Greeley, Sojourner Truth, and William Lloyd Garrison. They also attracted imitators. During the following few years, hundreds of people claimed the ability to communicate with spirits. Despite their fame, or more likely because of it, the sisters suffered from troubled relationships, psychological breakdowns, and alcoholism. In her 50s, Maggie delivered a public confession of their long-drawn hoax, which started as a harmless childhood prank. At bedtime, they would tie an apple on a string and move it up and down, causing the apple to bump on the floor. The sisters later developed the ability to manipulate their knuckles and toes to produce a popping sound.
And then, in the 20th century, the science started studying the survival of the soul. But the first scientist who tried to do a research was Dr. Clive Baxter. You can show the picture. Yeah. He's the guy. This guy was the inventor of the lie detector, that machine, you know, that when you put it on it, then you'll know if the person is lying or not. It very used by the Scotland Yard. And his experiment, his research were with plants. He put a polygraph to see, to check the plants if they feel. And after 5 years of research at the university, he put a plant in the classroom with polygraph, and it was a screen. It was a screen on the wall, like this. And he asked the student to come here and cut with a scissor a piece of the plant. When the student came closer to the plant and cut a piece of it, and they scream, the polygraph starts shaking, start moving. And he said, oh, the plants can feel. It was in the early 60s, 50, almost 60 years ago. It was the first research about the possibility of survival. And then he starts doing another research with letters. And he went to a room close on the other side of his classroom, and he took out the bad flower, how say, as folhas secas, the dry leaves. He took off the dry leaves and and then he put some acid, and the letter was on the other room with the polygraph on it. When he put the acid on the other room, the letters start filling. And he was very surprised, because he said, if that happened with the letters, can you imagine with the brain? In his book, the Secret Life of the Plants. It's a wonderful book. You can put the second, primary perception. Okay, this is the one that I'm talking about. And in his book, he said that he was supposed to he was taking a flight from New York to London. And on the flight, they served a salad. He was very hungry, and he said that he got a fork. He said, hey, letters, I'm so sorry, but I'm so hungry that I'm going to eat you. He ate the letters. He was a very, very famous and very important. You can check his name on Google. You can see his story. It was the first research at the university talking about the life after that. You can send the second one, the next one. Okay, can just stop. Okay, but the first great research here in America was started 30 years ago with a psychologist. His name is Ian Stevenson, professor of the University of Virginia, who started studying the near-death experience. I'm sure that everybody knows here what I'm talking about. People who people who got dead, and for a miracle, after 5 or 10 minutes, he comes and still alive. And he had studying about 3,000 cases, people who got dead and came back. And every time, when they always, people who had that experience come back and telling very interesting stories, saying that they saw a light on the other side, see people, families, parents who already were dead, and they changed their lives. That's the most important thing. They changed their lives. And this research, they're still doing the research today. With Dr. Jim Tucker. I had the opportunity to visit this research at the Virginia University 5 years ago. But the doctor wasn't there, but I really enjoyed because I had, it was two big rooms, and I had the opportunity to see some cases. And I can play this video now. Isn't that amazing? I had the experience to do a research in one case, like this one in Brazil. A guy was driving his car. I mean, his wife was driving his car because he is not supposed to drive. You're going to understand why. And then he had the accident, and he went to the hospital and got in coma, and the doctor find out that he was dead. And they took the body to the morgue, and it was covered. Then after 5 minutes, the nurse went there to pick up the pen that the doctor forgot on the table. And then she found out that the guy was breathing because the sheet was coming up and down. And she came back, talked to the doctor, and he went there, and they found out that the guy was alive. And they took the body back to the therapy, the intensive therapy, and they start doing CPR. I did that when I was exchange student in North Carolina, when I was 16 years old. I remember CPR. CPR, exactly. And after 5 minutes, they took the body there. He was breathing. He spent 15 days in coma. After 15 days, he came back, started talking. He said, "Doctor, we need to have a private conversation." And he said to the doctor, "I saw all my surgery. I saw when you said we lost the patient. I saw when you got your pen to write down, and the pen fell down, and you was looking for the pen and you could not find. But when the pen fell down, it kicked in your shoes and was behind the door. He went there, the pen was there. But doctor, you got to understand, because I'm blind." And he was blind. And he saw everything. The surgery and everything. So how can you explain that? Now we did an interview with the nurse, with the patient, with the doctor. And it's just amazing. Or you believe that the brain, it's one thing, and the mind, the consciousness is another thing, or you don't know how to, or you can't explain this phenomenon. You can put this one. There's another doctor called Raymond Mood Jr., who has been doing a similar research with many books. You can read his books. It's wonderful books. Just play. You can just play.
What I think happens when we die is that we enter into another state of existence, or another state of consciousness, that is so extraordinarily different from the spatial and temporal frame of reality in which we exist in the physical world, that the language we have is not yet adequate to describe this other state of existence or consciousness.
So when they come back, they're changed, they're transformed.
There are a number of transformations we see with people who come back from near-death experiences. The most prominent one is that whatever they had been chasing before, whether knowledge or fame or power or money or any of these other things, that when they come back, they say that the most important thing we can do while we're alive is to learn how to love.
They're great. And the next picture is Dr. Jim Tucker, the one that I was talking about, which is the professor of the University of Virginia. And he's continuing the research of Dr. Jan Stevenson. And he has been traveling in many countries speaking about near-death experience. Well, but the most how can I say, exciting experience about the survival of the soul is the transcommunication, or TCI. I know that many people have heard about it. This house has a group doing this kind of research. We've been doing the research 3 days ago, and we're going to talk about a little bit about TCI, or transcommunication. It's the communication between the living and the dead by the electronic devices. But it started in the late 50s with two priestesses. Can just put the picture on it. In the Catholic Church in Rome, there's two priestesses which used to do songs at the church, and they used to record those songs. But the recorder machine was very different that we know today. And they were recording the Gregorian songs at the church. When they start listening what they recorded, and it came with a voice, because the priest called it Agustin Gemelli and Ernest Pellegrini Ernet. Agustin Gemelli and Pellegrini, the other one's Pellegrini Ernet. And he was trying to record it, and the machine wasn't working well. And he used to say, he said something that he used to say all the time when he was hungry. So my daddy, help me. I can do it. He used to say that all the time. When he put the recorder to listen to the music, he started listening a voice saying, "Of course, my son, that I'm going to help you." He said, he looked to the other priest and said, "Hey, what's going on here? Did you record something from your daddy?" "No, when my dad died, it doesn't exist a recorded machine." Could be the devil, the evil. He used to say that. And he said, well, if it was your father, he gotta record it again, so we can make sure that he's your father. And then he started asking, "Oh, my father, if it was you, do it again, because I want to make sure that it was you." When he starts playing, started to listen, he starts listening the same voice saying, "Of course, my son, of course it's your father." And then he called him with his nickname that only his father used to say, he used to call. And then he did a newsletter and sent to the Pope. And the Pope answered the priest to say, "Don't be worried about it. This has nothing to have with the spirits, with spiritism. It can, of course, it's a communication, a real communication between the living and the dead. This information, it's in a magazine called Astra, with goes to all the churches all over the world. It's a real story with a very famous priest, which is in your book, telling this story about the transcommunication. This was the first case in the history of the TCI. But the great research who did, next slide please, was Dr. Ernest Senkowski. He's a professor. He's a physics, was a physics. He died like I think 5 or 6 years ago. And in his house, he put a lot of electronic devices, and during 35 years, he recorded over 20,000 voices. 20,000 voices. It was just amazing what he did. And the second one, next slide, was this Frederick Jurgensen. He was born in Russia, but he used to live in Sweden. And he was a very famous because he was a movie maker. And he used to make movies for the Vatican. He was a writer, singer, and he used to record cantos de pássaro, how do you say? Bird songs, great. I forgot that. Thanks for helping me. And it's kind of hobby. He used to record the songs. Once he started to listen to the songs, he started to listen to a human voice. He thought that the device has any problem with the tape or devices, but nothing. Everything was perfect. Everything was perfect. And then he started to listen to a voice saying, "Don't turn off your devices. We are the spirits, and we've got to research. We got a job to do with you." This guy recorded over 16,000 voices. 16,000 voices. You can write down his name, and look in the Google to see his story. And talking about TCI, everyone who likes the subject can read about his life and what he did. Frederick Jurgensen. The next one was here in America, in the place where I used to live when I was a teenager, North Carolina, with this engineer. His name is George William Meek, and he was trying to build equipment to start talking with the spirits, and he spent $500,000 from his own money during 5 years. He built 5 equipment, but he didn't get any voice. He was almost poor. And he went to a party in a friend's house when a man came close to him by his side and asked, "Are you Dr. Meek?" He said, "Yes." He said, "My name is John O'Neill, and I'm an engineer, but I'm a psychic, and I hear voices." And he thought the guy was crazy, and the guy was keeping talking, say, "I know that you are making equipment to start to talk with spirits, and there's a deaf engineer by your side saying that you have to change some parts of your equipment so he can talk to you." He was looking to the guy nice now, started looking like nice. This guy's nice. And he took the guy to his house. And the spirit of the deaf engineer was telling him what parts to change, and they changed all the parts that that engineer said. And on the first year of the decade, 1881, they got contact. The spirit came in the machine. Say, "My name is John Jeffers Miller. I was an engineer, used to work for NASA. the spirit gave his social security number, and he gave, I'm going to give you 2 telephones from the Secret Service of NASA, so you make sure that I'm telling the truth. He gave the phone number. And Dr. Meek said that he decided to call that number. And he was very surprised because when he called that number, somebody else on the other side asking him, how do you know this number? Because it's from the Secret Service of NASA. He said that he didn't want to tell the guy that was a dead man who gave to him and turned off the phone. And to finish, he said, I want you to do me a favor, the Spirit saying to him. Because 5 days before I died, I did an insurance, and I didn't tell my wife. I want you to tell my wife that I've got insurance, so she can receive the money. And she received the money. She got very happy. This Spirit talked during 6 months with Dr. Meek. And in 1989, he recorded 20 hours during the 6 months. He put the best parts on a tape and sent to 100 journalists in all over the world. He thought that everybody was going to say, hey, we discovered that nobody dies. But after he sent the newsletter with the tape, he received so many so many letters, not mail that time, so many letters saying that could be a fraud, and nobody believed in him. Nobody. And I got some voices because he recorded a voice of Dr. Konstantin Haudiv, which is the most famous research on this subject. You can just pass the next one. Oh, son of the book, The Survival of the Human Consciousness. Next one. Okay, he's the dead engineer. Okay. Oh, his wife, look how she's happy with the money that she received. Oh. Okay, now you can play the... No, that was a movie on the other one. Yeah, this
Morning, this is George Meek. This is Konstantin Haudiv.
This is the Spirit.
George, my friend, at last we succeeded in contacting you. Jeanette is beside me, and she wants to give you all her love. This is Konstantin Haudiv. This is the first contact you get from us. I suppose that you can hear me. I can hear you very well, very plainly. Fine, so this is the beginning of a new story, a new chapter, George. You are a very good friend of ours, even if we haven't met. We will continue this. This is the first bridge we succeeded to build to the States. Mark was connected, and I must interrupt now. Thank you, dear friend. You may not be able to hear me, but I want to take this occasion to say...
This accent sounds so familiar. Because I used to live in North Carolina, and I started listening to him. I remember when I was there and having pecan pie, you know. I love just North Carolina. I had the best year of my life being an exchange student in this country. Well, I hope my friends here can get some good results on their research on TCI. And also I've been to Seattle, TCI group, 3 years ago. I spent an afternoon, all afternoon with the two researchers at her lab. We received a lot of pictures on the TV. So just amazing, just unbelievable. And I said, well, when I got back home, when I start telling everybody, they're going to say that I'm lying because it's just amazing. It's very, the faces coming on the screen after they start recording, getting the voices. The voices saying that scream, that picture was her, was the guy. I mean, was just amazing. And TCI, for me, is the most impressive phenomenon in the nature, because there's no medium. It's just the machine, just the equipment, the devices, the electronic devices. That's all. And the voice comes, the face, the picture come on TV. Well, to be finished, let's talk about channeling through writing or handwriting, psychography, because tonight we're going to have one of the most famous medium in Brazil, Newton Souza, who has been doing his job, or not his job because he doesn't live, he doesn't make money with that. He's an English teacher. I mean, he's a history teacher in Brazil. He has his own profession, and he does the psychography when he's in his free time or vacation. He doesn't receive anything to do this, like everybody knows. And we did a trip to London last July, and I got very impressed because Newton is a semi-mechanic medium, because there's three kind of mediums or handwriting mediums. There's a mechanic who doesn't have conscience of nothing. He just writes very fast. He doesn't know what he's writing. And the semi-mechanic, he has conscience and he knows. Many times he has been doing the psychography there. I mean, he's speaking, and after we start talking, what I spoke, what I said, and he knows what's going on here. He's semi-mechanic. And the other kind of mediums, the audient or TCI, transcommunication. And the other ones, the intuitive medium, they feel, they hear, and then they start writing. But there's something very curious about those kind of medium. The mechanic and the semi-mechanic, like Newton, they change the letters by the spirit. Sometimes they write like the spirit did when he was alive. Sometimes the signature is similar, but not with the intuitive audient medium, just with mechanic and semi-mechanic. Newton does this kind of writing. And when we were in London, he received a letter in English, and he wrote from the end back to the beginning. So just amazing. And one line in English, one line in Portuguese, one line in English, one line in Portuguese. But when he starts writing English, he wrote from the beginning. Good. You can just no, put the next one so you can just so look that what I was talking about. And he doesn't know in English. And when we were in London, we were in the car, and he would say, "Hey, Gil, what perhaps mean?" Something perhaps. I had to translate to him many words, and he was catching that, and it came in the evening when he was trying to Okay, and do it. You can just play. He was the.
Do not always.
I like this accent.
The friend you do not keep avoids your path. The medication whose proper dosage you do not abide by will not benefit you physically. The same applies to divine grace. If you do not guard the blessings from on high, respecting them within you, you do not utilize the elevated knowledge that you have received for the benefit.
And the people got so impressed because we just have like 3 or 4 people.
27, 28, 29, 30, 31 e 32. 27, 28, 29, 30, 31 e 32.
And the people in England got so impressed because we didn't know that he's going to receive a letter in English. And actually they called Newton to invite him to go next July. I said, no, July he's going to come back here. Because we went to Orlando last night. It was just amazing. We had a woman who had a daughter with 11 years old who went in a trip from her school, in a school bus, and they had an accident. And she got dead, and it was 1989. Until today, that woman was crying, and she received the letter. On the end, she, using the hands of the medium, she draw the school bus and draw the dress that she was wearing, using on the day. It was just amazing. He received 6 letters over there last night, and we had a great time there. And those evidence just comes to us to prove that we are eternal beings. That there's something after this life, you know? And I'm sure that we're gonna still alive after this life. And the Spiritism doesn't leave us with the faith alone. Spiritism puts the knowledge in front of the faith. And here in the Spiritism, we study, we learn, and then we understand to believe. This is a reason of faith, like we said. We do not accept blind faith. We got to study, we got to understand this kind of subject. It's been said, then you know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John 8:32. He didn't say believe in the truth, but to know the truth. Knowledge comes through studying. This place is a spot of light. I want to say thank you so much, Luigi and Yonara and everyone here, to the opportunity to share with you, to learn with you, and to be with you one more time. Thank you so much.